Hello, everyone. My name is Benedikt, and I work at GameInfluencer. We are a data-driven influencer marketing platform who's specialized in doing campaigns for the gaming area. We work with all kinds of games like console, PC. We are in mobile games, and today I want to give you a short introduction to how influencer marketing works. So, as probably not all of you are familiar with the topic, I will start by telling you about the basics of influencer marketing and how we see them. Afterwards, and this will be the main part of my talk, I will introduce you to a survey we did with lots of our influencers to really get to know them, to understand what they think and talk about and how they feel about the topic of influencer marketing. And at the end, I will talk a bit about how to identify the right influencers for your game if you want to do an influencer marketing campaign. So let's start by a short introduction to influencer marketing. In generally, I say that we nowadays live in a relationship economy. What that means is that we need to trust the person or company that we buy from. And while most companies struggle with that, influencers really do command that trust. So I've got two examples right here from our friends at Come To Us, who did a YouTube gameplay trailer, usual for Summoners War. And it got like 36,000 views, which is perfectly fine for a normal gameplay trailer. Everything's good, but it just was commented 27 times, and it got like 217 upvotes. We also did a influencer campaign for the same game, for Summoners War. And we asked our friend MXM, one of the biggest French YouTubers, to do a video for Summoners War, and just compare the numbers. I'm really not going for the views, they're somewhat higher, but as you can see, there is way more interaction on the YouTube video. The video by MXM got an astonishing 8,000 comments and a huge interaction with up and down votes. So it got like 87,000 upvotes. So this is one of the main points when coming to a trust economy, that you really have a close connection between the influencer and their fans. I will go into detail about this later in my talk. But for now, some general facts about influencer marketing, which now has become a global phenomenon. In a survey that Forbes magazine did in 2016, they found out that 92% of customers trust an influencer more than they trust an advertisement or a traditional celebrity endorsement. And also, in the same survey, they seeked out that 47% of customers use ad block technology. So traditional digital advertising channels often have limited effectiveness when compared to an influencer campaign, because obviously this campaign reaches everyone. And another thing in 2016, which I want to tell you, is that $255 million was spent on influencer marketing every month. And I can assure you that this number will be way higher at the end of 2017. So influencer marketing is still a phenomenon that will grow. So here are some best case examples for influencer marketing campaign that you see how potent it can be. A good example is Seriously, who spent 90% of their marketing budget for Best Fiends just on influencer marketing. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how many of you know Best Fiends, but it has been very, very successful game, just pretty much with doing influencer marketing. Another good example is Scopely, who worked with influencers to get 4 million downloads of The Walking Dead: Road to Survival in just the first week after it has been released. And the third example that I wanted to give you is we work with Bill Games to shoot Trollface quest really means to the top 20 of the French app charts with a dedicated influencer campaign, which wasn't even that expensive, by the way. So influencers can have huge impact on the games they are promoting. So the question is, why is influencer marketing so effective? Therefore, I would like to compare traditional digital advertising to influencer marketing. First of all, when it comes to the motivation of the viewer. Traditional digital advertising is something to get through, to get to the actual desired content, whilst influencer marketing videos are actively seeked out by the viewers. This leads to traditional advertising being obviously perceived as an ad or even as an intrusion, while influencer marketing can be perceived as a recommendation from a role model, the influencer, that might even be seen as a friend for some of their viewers because they really have a very, very close connection to each other. And the last big difference is the time. Because if you have a traditional ad, like obviously on your Facebook page, you will just see it for like 0.5 seconds. And a YouTube app, maybe like 30 seconds. But compare this to an influencer video, which will be at least 3 minutes to 30 minutes for a YouTube video, or it might be even an hour-long Twitch stream, where the viewer just watches your game and your influencer marketing. So the next thing I want to talk about is what defines these influencers. Because obviously they are followed. They have large social networks, and that's, the main point of an influencer. But that's not all there is to it, because influencers are followed for a reason. It's not that easy to be an influencer. You can't just go on YouTube and your channel will skyrocket. No, these are very, very special persons, very charismatic entertainers who thrive on engagement and inspiration and will connect to the audience with the personality. And the personality of the influencer is often way more important than the topic they talk about and they do a video about, which is very crucial for influencer marketing, since obviously you want these influencers to lend the personality to your topic and your game. And the last point is obviously an influencer has to be trusted by their fans and looked up to, so they can really give them recommendations. Let's do a little jump. We get asked a lot when doing influencer marketing, which platform should we focus on? And when it comes to influencer marketing for games, we usually recommend the long-form video content, aka YouTube and Twitch, which is best for exposing your audience to the game for the first time. So they can really have a good and deep look into the gameplay, and they can inform themselves about the game with these long videos. But that's not to say that we would neglect short-form content like Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and so on. But these are rather great to do follow-ups. Like if a YouTuber has done a video on your game, he might do a tweet like 2 days after, where he says that he's still playing this great game and you can download it here. And this might drive the downloads for an additional time. So these just short mentions on the platforms. And now I will already go to the survey we did to understand influencers. So how did the survey look? We randomly selected 7,500 influencers out of our database, which consists of roughly 4 million, and mailed them the survey and asked them to fill it out. 542 of these influencers filled out the survey, so nearly 10%, which we think is quite fine, considering that nobody really likes to do surveys, I guess. And these influencers who filled out the surveys come from 15 different countries. So we pretty much see all parts of the world being represented in this survey. And it was not just all parts of the world, but also all kinds of influencers. So obviously, the bigger the influencer is, the more important he is probably to you. So we also looked that there were enough influencers with a big enough audience. So 384 answers came from influencers with more than 100,000 followers on their main channel. So we both reached smaller influencers, but the main focus was obviously on the bigger ones. So now I want to present to you 4 main points that we found most interesting from this survey. The first one is that this is their job. Being an influencer is a full-time job, at least for 68% of the influencers that we've asked. On average, the influencers that we have asked, not only full-time, but also the part-time influencers, produce 26 videos per month. And they spend 5.3 hours on average to do a single video. This leads to them having a 34-hour work week just to create these videos. This does not include stuff like getting knowledge about the videos, about the game they're playing. This does not include interacting with the fans, communicating, and even does not include emails with companies like ours. So you can imagine, looking at these numbers, that being an influencer is a full-time job. It takes probably way more than just your average 40-hour work week to do all these stuff that influencers do for the YouTube channels, for their videos, and that they produce great content for their fans. So the second thing we asked us is, what are you as publishers competing against when asking influencers to do a campaign for you? So we asked them, how many business inquiries do you get per month? And the average YouTuber said that they get 19.5 inquiries per month. But what's more interesting is that they just accept 2 of them. So you have an acceptance rate of roughly 10% of inquiries. So the competition is already pretty hard when looking at the average YouTuber. But if we look at YouTubers, at the big ones with channels with over 800K followers, these receive an average of 50 business inquiries per month, and they still accept only 2 of them. So the competition is pretty hard when wanting to do influencer marketing. So obviously, we asked them what decides which offers are taken. And we took the answers and made a score out of them, with 0% being completely irrelevant for the influencers and 100% being the most important factors for influencers. So we gave them 6 options to choose from. The first one was in-game features, like voice and character or something similar. And this only got an acceptance score of 37%. So it's something, you can do it, but it's not that important to the influencer. A thing that is way more important, with an acceptance score of 61%, is extras like trips, goodies, hardware, stuff they can even give out to their fans and followers. With 69%, the next importance is the price and the payment. And we thought that this is very interesting. So there will be 3 points that are more important to the influencers when deciding which offers are taken than the price. The first one being a good relation with the business partner, with an acceptance score of 77%, which is fairly obvious. You don't want to work with someone you don't know, you have to work with people you have good relations to. An acceptance score of 83% was the quality of your game. So influencers really like to go for these good games that they feel they can show off to their audience. And this is closely connected to the last point, which is the most important factor for influencers when deciding which offers are taken. It is whether the channel fits their audience. So if the game is good for the audience, they will play it. But if the game is not good for the audience, and even if it might be a great game, and if they get paid a lot, they still might not play it. Because, well, audience is everything for the influencers. It's their capital. And what they're most afraid of is losing their audience. So obviously, they just go for what the audience pleases, even when getting money for it and even when doing influencer marketing. Speaking of money, obviously, payment is still an important factor when doing influencer marketing campaign. And there are three dominant payment methods, CPI, CPM, and fixed price. And we asked the influencers which one they prefer. Not surprisingly, the least preferred one is the CPI, so they get paid per installs from the game. This is just accepted by 26% of YouTubers, and it's fairly obvious that they don't like it because they take all the risk. This is probably preferred by you, by the game publishers. At least we get this feedback a lot. But, well, you obviously have to see what works for the YouTuber. A model that is pretty much used by us the most. We use all three models, but we usually go for the CPM model because we think that's a good middle ground between pleasing the influencers and pleasing the game publishers. So the influencers get paid for 1,000 video views. So that's something the influencers can influence directly by making a good video. But also you as the publishers get some safety when you have guaranteed video views. You have at least guaranteed reach. And the last and most popular model for the influencers is obviously a fixed price, where they just get a fixed price on the video no matter how it performs. So what's interesting is obviously the fixed price model is the safe option for the influencer. But nevertheless, it's only 88% of influencers who are to prefer the fixed price. So we thought, what makes them prefer a CPI model, for example, or a CPM model? And it obviously is not the security, but the chance to reach higher. So if you really want to do a CPI model with your influencers, you probably can get them to work on a CPI basis, but you have to pay them accordingly. So if the CPI is good enough, they obviously will choose the CPI model over the fixed price model, at least if they're not too much into safety when doing influencer marketing. So this already takes me to the learnings we did get from this survey. The first one is pretty obvious: make a good game. Don't let the influencers play your unfinished games or whatever. Just really, if the game pleases the influencers, he will play them and he can produce good videos. The second thing is, find a payment model that works for you and the influencer. Third learning is that you should also definitely make use of the untapped potential, which are the smaller YouTube channels. Don't always shoot for the big guys, but a smaller channel that fits your game perfectly might as well perform better and may even be easier to reach because you don't compete against that much other inquiries. The third learning is make your offer stand out. As I said, you're competing against like 50 other inquiries per month. So make your offer personal. Take the time to tell the influencer why you want to work with them and why it would be a great opportunity. And maybe give them something special. The next thing is be professional. As we've seen, it's the main job of the influencer to do what they do. So please act according to that. And also demand that professionalism back from the influencer, of course. And pretty much the most important thing is that you have to pick the right influencer for your game. And this is the point that I want to talk about now in more detail. So how do you do this? How do you identify the right influencer for your game? So first of all, obviously you have to look at the type of channel they're doing. If you have a shooter game, well, you obviously go for shooter channels, but sometimes it might be more interesting. For example, if you want to do a match 3 shooters and reach a rather casual female audience, you might not be well advised by working with gaming channels. You might even try to work with cooking channels, for example, and let them do creative ideas to introduce your game in their videos. Which leads to the next point, that obviously the audience demographics have to match. Just think about the audience that you want to reach, and then go for the YouTubers that reach these audiences. And it also is about the game preference, that not only you've got, but also the audience and the YouTuber themselves have for their channel. As I mentioned before, one thing that is crucial is the engagement rates of the channel. So channels with high engagement rates, like high comments, high amount of likes, are usually better suited, because these influencers are more trusted and are probably better able to bring across your game. Also, what's very important is professionalism and reliability, because if you want to start a big influencer campaign and your main influencer just tells you 2 days before the video should go live that he will be off to like 3 weeks holiday, that might really be a problem for your whole marketing campaign. And well, sometimes this happens. So you have to know which influencer is really reliable and professional. And last but not least, what is really gold when going for an influencer marketing campaign are previous campaign performance. Because if you already have experience when doing influencer marketing, probably similar channels to those who have already performed well will also obviously do fairly well. So you may ask yourselves, help, how could I ever know all this? Well, brace yourselves, I'll do a short sales pitch now, but it's only one slide. We can probably help you with that. So we at GameInfluencer have a huge database who currently supports a profiling of 4 million influencers. We have detailed data on all of the influencers, like viewership, demographics, engagement and reach, game preferences, and pretty much most importantly, our previous campaign performance. And we can match these influencers to your game to find the perfect influencers for you. This is why we can guarantee you KPIs for your game, because we are so sure that we find good influencers for you. The price and everything will vary, but if you need more details about us, please come to me after the talk or drop me an email. So, thanks you all for taking the time to listen to me. And if you get additional questions, please go ahead.